Top side, obviously big club, top coach, fantastic players, and yeah, they're expected to win basically every game they play, aren't they? So yeah, it'll be a tough one for us, but as always, same sort of answers for you really. We get the boys ready, get them well prepared, and I go there expecting us to be competitive and expecting us to get a positive result.
You've had 12 players, a whole team away in Qatar at the World Cup. I mean, what would you assess has been the physical and mental exertion they've been placed under the last month or so?
Well, yeah, 12, but it's a bit of a mix in terms of when they got knocked out and how much game time they played. So it's a real mix across the 12. They've dripped back in according to their own circumstance, and I have to say they've come back in a really good way. We're still waiting on Hakim and Matteo. Obviously, they went the distance in terms of not to the final, but to the third and fourth place. So, and obviously they played the games as well. So, a big demand for those two. So, it was important to give them a little bit of time. They won't be available for the game as a consequence, but still, everybody else has been back. We've had a few days training with all of them. So, yeah, it is what it is. We have to deal with it, and it's been good.
Yeah, I mean, Ziyech was quite a story, wasn't he? You played 7 games for Morocco. They were sensational. He was sensational. He scored 1. There was an assist as well. But he's a player largely you've not really used so far. Have you changed your mind about Ziyech, given what you saw at the World Cup?
Well, I mean, he played against Man City, came on against Newcastle. I think where he was at when we first came, he was a little bit away from the first 11. But he's been involved in the games. I think he came on in the first game as a sub. We know his qualities. We like him as a player. Plays in between the lines. He's got fantastic qualities we saw in the World Cup. So, you can speak a lot at Chelsea. There's always good players that aren't in the starting 11 and have to be patient. But I'm delighted for him. Kept in touch with him over the World Cup. Delighted for him that he got the game time. Delighted for him that he helped his team. He's a good guy and he's got quality.
Sure. Just on injuries, obviously the news about Broja not good. And we were hearing that Fofana came off in the Brentford friendly. Can you just give us an update on Fofana and tell us who is not available then for Bournemouth?
Yeah, so Wesley just had a little setback, which can sometimes happen at the very last stage of the rehab. So it'll be a couple of weeks, so he won't be available for the game. Obviously, Armando's a big loss in terms of the time he's out. Of the other ones, Reece is back in. Reece has been training with us and completed 65 minutes in the week. Still without Ruben, still without Ben Chilwell. Obviously, Kante, Mendy's had a couple of days training with us. Is that it?
I think that's it, isn't it? Yeah, I think that's it.
How far away is Kante?
He's a while. He'll be end of Feb, start of March.
You're coming up to your first transfer window as the Chelsea manager. Christopher Vivell is on board now as the technical director. Your reaction to that appointment and what does it need to do for you in the coming transfer window, do you think?
Our reaction is positive. I've met him a few times and I have a really good feeling. I think he's going to be a real asset to the football club. I think his role is to connect the football club in terms of the different departments, and my normal relationship with technical directors is a supportive one. We're trying to help each other. So that's how we're going to work. I'm looking forward to that journey together.
Just a couple more, Graham. Mendy's contract has been in the paper the last day or two. There's been a suggestion that he won't sign because he's not happy with the terms on offer. Can you clarify that, and how happy is Mendy at Chelsea right now?
Well, it's not my place, I don't think, to speak publicly about players' contract situation. I think that's between them and the club. Mendy's been absolutely top with us, with me. Great guy, happy around the place. But in terms of his contract, it's not for me to comment on.
Sure. And just finally from me, after 3 straight defeats before the break, I mean, how badly do you need a win starting with Bournemouth?
Well, it's always nice to win, that's for sure. So we know the situation. We know how important it is. We want to try our best.
Thank you. Good luck. Happy Christmas.
Thank you, and you.
Hi, Graham.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, thank you. Yourself?
Good, thank you. Just picking up on those 3 league defeats before the break. considering that, how beneficial was the break, and do you see the squad in a better place now?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to go through moments. Everyone, if you're honest, you say, well, we were suffering a little bit before the break in terms of the results weren't what we wanted. Performances weren't so good either. So sometimes as a team, as a club, you have to, you go through these periods. We were through one there, and I could offer lots of explanations as to why, but you just have to accept that sometimes they happen, and you have to, get through them, and then a break can help, of course, whether it's an international break, whether it's a different fixture in terms of a different competition. But we had the break. Obviously, the guys that went away had a World Cup. That gets cleared away, and everyone can come back and reset. And obviously, all the learning that's happened in that really intense period, you can consolidate and say, okay, how do we go forward? And that's been beneficial.
Gary O'Neill speaks very highly of you. What have you made of the job he's done at Bournemouth in a short space of time?
No, it's there. You can see. Results-wise, a significant improvement, and I would say performance as well is strong. I think he's been able to put his ideas onto the team. Very clear. I like how they play. They build up. They can use the longer balls sort of forward, but they don't just do that as well. They play through the back. Defensively sound as well. So he's done a really good job.
Nick?
Hi.
On Kante's situation with his injury, is it the timescale still what was expected?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a surgery, so it's a minimum period. I think it's 4 months, pretty much.
The longer, sort of that length of time, obviously, you know what his situation is about his future. I know you can also talk about contracts, but was there enough time to kind of the decisions about him have to be made before he'll be playing again? What kind of where are we at with that? Do you think?
Well, I think my focus is just to help him get back fit as soon as possible. I mean, everyone knows the quality that he has, so that's not in question. It's more just helping him get fit, helping him get on the pitch, doing it the right way, and looking forward to seeing him play football, because we haven't seen him.
And with the time that you obviously the break, have you been able to? How much? Obviously, you haven't had your full squad available to you, but have you been able to use the break to your advantage in terms of putting things in place? And just obviously, you didn't have a pre-season, and pre-seasons are sort of harder and harder to come by, aren't they, in football generally? So
Yeah.
were you able to use that to get things done that you wouldn't have done otherwise?
Yeah, we've used the time as best as we can. Like you say, in the first few days, we had, I think, 4 players to work with. So that brings its... Can't prepare. It would have been ideal if we could play Bournemouth in a 5-a-side. That'd be good, but we can't. So we have to sort of work. We've used the young players. Built the ideas, like I said, try to consolidate all the learning that happens in that really intense period, and make some more connections with the people at the club, because you forget that you're sort of into this massive, intense period, and you're still getting to know everyone around the building. So we could do that. We had a week away together, so that helped that, I think, really well. So I think the feeling is really positive, but so we're looking forward to the game.
Dom?
Hi, Graham.
Hi.
A bit of a random general one, if possible. What did you find most interesting tactically about the World Cup and watching teams at the tournament? Was there anything that stood out for you that you thought was different or unusual?
I suppose the thing that stood out was the defensive strategies of the teams. I would say it was mostly relatively passive. So there wasn't too much of pressing or pressing high. It was a bit more of a drop off. So that was the thing tactically that instinctively I thought was.
Was that maybe born of the heat or something over there? Do you think, or do you think it might be underlying a trend that might set in?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Good question. It could be a bit of everything, I suppose. But yeah, the heat plays a part. I suppose if you're going to coordinate any pressing, you'd argue you would need some time to work on that. And obviously, with the lack of time that the international teams had, you have to select what you need to work with, I guess, and what you think is prioritised. What's the priority? And I suppose dropping off and defending that way is an easier way to do it, because you haven't got the time to make it any more progressive.
Okay, last one in the broadcast, Martin Tyler.
Hi, Martin.
Compliments of the city to you.
And to you.
It's a logistical question, really. We know how difficult it is as a coach to manage the Christmas period anyway. Will you be able to put into practice, if there'd been no World Cup, what you'd have done over the next 2 weeks? Or will you have to change what you would have done, say, a year ago at Brighton with these fixtures because of the World Cup? Will you give players different time off, or are you going into a schedule now that actually doesn't take the World Cup into account at all? You've got to prepare as if there hadn't been one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what we've done is we've given all the guys that have been in the World Cup some time off, so they've had a bit of a break, a bit of a holiday, a bit of time with their families. Obviously, it's not so easy to get the balance right. We're all learning because it's never happened before, so we don't know how that's going to go. And I think you've got to constantly evaluate the players and assess, because you might get 2 or 3 months down the line and think, hang on a minute, we need to do something here just to refresh, because we don't know how that's going to look like in the future, long term, the effects of a World Cup, something so big. When you're watching it, you realise how big it is. We all know that, but we were speaking before it, and so it's the World Cup, and because we're in the middle of a Premier League pre-season, Premier League season, it's like. But then you watch the World Cup final and you think, wow, this is a massive event, and of course it is. So you don't know how that's going to play out long. So that's a bit of a constant assessment and evaluation. But now we're confident that the guys are where they are, and we can work and we can prepare normally to the games.
Yeah, it's actually Gary O'Neill's first match in charge since being permanently appointed as the Bournemouth manager. It felt like he already was, because he had such a long spell as the caretaker boss. But it'll be good to see them back in action, along with Chelsea, who are desperate for wins, Darren. They lost 3 in a row prior to the World Cup break, 5 without a win after it had started all so well for Graham Potter as the new Chelsea boss. How much do you think he will have been working with the team in this break, and what were the key things he needed to work on, do you think?
Defence. They've been conceding too many goals, and they're not scoring enough either. And I'd say he's under a bit of pressure going into this game, because there are some Chelsea fans
Nice
who've lost
to see
faith
these goals again,
in
isn't
him.
it?
I know you as a Brighton fan, this is music to your ears. They're not showing enough of them.
No, I know.
Okay,
We only saw 2 Brighton goals.
But if you look at the manner of these goals, uncertainty in the Blues' back line, ball watching, and they're far too static. And I think if we see that in this Bournemouth game, they could be in trouble, because Bournemouth have had wins at Chelsea before. Bournemouth do have players who know how to score goals. They also have players who can work for Gary O'Neill, and we've seen that in the games. The initial games, they fell off a bit towards the back end of the first half of the season, but they do play for him. Potter needs this result. He and Moyes going into this game, we were talking about Arsenal West Ham a second ago, both under pressure, because they've both got sets of fans who are a little bit uncertain, a little bit restless, a little bit concerned. Certainly Chelsea fans starting to pine a bit for Thomas Tuchel, which is unfair, because I think as far as Potter's concerned, he's come in, he's got a new way of doing things. He doesn't quite have his team yet, and I think he'll need it. But I think as far as this game is concerned, it could be a banana skin for him.
After 14 matches in the Premier League last season, so the same amount of games Chelsea have played now, Chelsea were actually top of the Premier League table under Thomas Tuchel. And as Darren's pointed out, we have heard some Chelsea fans that are, wishing that he'd never been sacked as the Chelsea boss. And Darren points out that's unfair on Graham Potter. How much time does he need?
Well, hindsight's a great thing, because people were saying the same thing about Frank Lampard, and they easily forgot about that when Thomas Tuchel won the Champions League. So it's difficult for Graham Potter, because he had to take this job. Yeah. Let's be honest, he did. I know Brighton fans are reluctant to let him leave, but he had to. It's one of the biggest jobs in the world. But he's not going to get time. Maybe Todd Bowley might do different things to Abramovich, but we've seen, there's a reason why Chelsea have had 20 managers in 22 years, because they just don't give managers time. I think the biggest concern for me with Graham Potter is he doesn't know his best 11. The tinkering at times. Loftus-Cheek was playing at right back, full back. Azpilicueta was playing higher. Didn't make sense to me. I mean, he's one of the best managers. We know this, Graham Potter. I'm not a manager. I'm just giving my opinion of what I see, and I'm seeing too much tinkering. I'm seeing, players playing Kovacic Jorginho, then he'll bring on Conor Gallagher, then he'll come off. It's almost like too much tinkering. Mason Mount might play one game, then he won't play the next game. I know it's football, and you have to make changes, but you can't make 7 or 8 changes every single game because there's no continuity. Now, when he took over in the job, he was in place for a month before they play Leipzig in the Champions League. So he had that time. Salzburg, sorry. He had that time, didn't he? With the team. Now he's had that time with the players that haven't been at the World Cup. Hopefully he can implement it, but the results have to come because I do worry for him. And it's modern day football. Managers don't get much time anymore. They just don't. And the fans are not happy with the way that Chelsea are playing. We talk about Tottenham. They're not playing great football, but they're still getting results. Chelsea are not getting the results. And when I was at the Brentford game, a couple of months ago, it was just, there was no plan. Sterling and Aubameyang were on the bench, then they'd come on, and they just kind of looked like they didn't really know where to be. And a lot of players in this day and age, I think, need guidance. When I played, I felt like I didn't need that much guidance of what to do. I felt like the manager would tell me and I'd implement that in the game. Whereas it seems to me, because Koulibaly, during the World Cup for Senegal, was actually really good. Yeah. He led them, against a really good Portugal team at times. With Chelsea, with Koulibaly, he doesn't look like he's that player that they bought from Napoli, does he? And that's what they need. They need a player on the back line that can lead. And Mendy hasn't been good. We've had Kepa come in. There's been a lot of changes.
Yeah. At Brighton, he was awarded that time, though. And it came to fruition, and Brighton had their highest ever finish in the Premier League last season under Graham Potter and their best start to a Premier League season this year. As Leanne points out, though, will he be given the time? He has had to contend with a lot of injuries, and he's got a couple of those players coming back now. So how much are we going to learn about Graham Potter's Chelsea in these first few matches in January, do you think?
I think we're going to have to learn a lot very quickly because as far as the Chelsea fans are concerned, they're so vocal and the ownership have shown that they do like to listen to what the fans are saying. The problem for them as well is that although they can pledge to stick with him whether they get into the top 4 or not, the finances of the Premier League and the ability to attract top players is predicated on you finishing in the Champions League places. They want to go to teams playing in the elite club competition in Europe. And I think if it does look as though they're not going to finish in the top 4, and if they're quite some way off the pace, that will be a massive test of the faith that they have in him. And also, if there's a happy ship, you've played before, you know what dressing rooms are like when the results start to go wrong. That could be a problem for him as well. These first 3 games, as you're suggesting, Jules, he's got to get positive results. He has to send out a message that Chelsea aren't there to be beaten by all and sundry. And if he doesn't send that message out in this first 3 games, he could be in a bit of trouble.